Alright, where were we? Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the AI Gym Leader crew battle. If you remember from last time, Johto has just gone up 3-1 on Kanto, after Morty won in the battle of the 4th Gym Leaders. Now it's time for Chuck and Koga to face off. Oh, quick note now, because it'll become relevant in these next few battles. Due to something about the AI I am using for these battles, if a trainer has a duplicate Pokemon on their team, and one of them leads the party, the bot crashes entirely. So for teams like Koga's, where he normally leads with a coughing and also has one in the back, he has to lead his muck for the battle to work. Anyway, just wanted to explain. Otherwise, I keep the teams structured as they are. Chuck v Koga, and Koga seems confident here. He has the type advantage, more Pokemon, and status infliction to work with. Chuck has Pokemon? 2 of them? I don't know. Turn 1, Koga switches to Wheezing and eats a rock slide for a little chip. Chuck decides to go Poliwrath, and Koga capitalizes by using Toxic. Koga understands that his bulky team can win simply by stalling and waiting for Chuck's 2 Pokemon to succumb to toxic damage. Poliwrath can use Hypnosis, Body Slam, Surf even does good damage, but it's all while Poliwrath's health is just ticking down. After a swap to Coughing, Chuck's Poliwrath faints. Primeape gets off a Focus Punch as Muck switches in, but it just goes to show how much the typing hurts Chuck here, as it only does about 1/3 damage. Primeape gives a valiant effort, but Wheezing eventually toxics the Primeape, and it's just a matter of time. I wish I could say Game 2 was different, but it honestly goes even worse for Chuck. Muck sets up Acid Armors, and Chuck tries to get sneaky with Double Team on Primeape, but the Toxic hits and Primeape can't get through 4 Pokemon in time. Koga seems smug about this win, but the crowd clearly favored Chuck during the battle, rooting for the underdog. This is a big win for Kanto though, and one more win will put them even with Johto. Sabrina versus Jasmine in the battle of the 6th Gym Leaders. Sabrina claimed all that time ago that Kanto would win, and she seems unworried as she enters the battle, even with the type disadvantage against Jasmine. Things start off rocky for Sabrina, as Steelix hits Mr. Mime hard with an Iron Tail on the switch-in. Sabrina's Pokemon are all physically quite frail, and Steelix is ready to take advantage. But Iron Tail is only 75% accurate, you may remember, and Steelix misses early as Mr. Mime hits a Psybeam for decent chip. Another Psybeam, and then Steelix knocks out Mr. Mime. Kadabra sets up a Reflect, Sabrina's team's only chance to live some hits, and Steelix hits another hard Iron Tail. Kadabra switches to Alakazam, and Steelix goes into Magnemite. Sabrina was risking a lot of damage to Alakazam there, but she wasn't punished. Alakazam actually sets up here using Calm Mind. This could give Sabrina a fast track to tons of damage, but Magnemite uses Thunder Wave, so now Alakazam isn't going to be outspeeding much. Its Synchronize ability means Magnemite is also paralyzed, but Jasmine just switches to Steelix as Alakazam can't move. As if making a point, Jasmine uses Screech, so now Iron Tail will definitely knock out Alakazam on the next turn, and Alakazam still hasn't been able to move. Sabrina sacks Kadabra and also gives up her Calm Mind boosts on Alakazam, and it's not looking good. Alakazam is back, but it can't do anything as Steelix hits 2 Iron Tails to knock it out. The Venomoth puts up an amazing effort honestly, stalling with Supersonic and Psybeams, but eventually Steelix fights through the confusion and knocks it out. Jasmine lets out a little laugh here. She thinks Sabrina has been full of it from the start, but Sabrina seems unperturbed. Game 2, and it starts almost exactly the same. After 2 turns, Steelix has been hit by a Psybeam and missed one of its Iron Tails. But this time, Steelix misses another Iron Tail, and then another. By the time it knocks out Mr. Mime, it's only at 30% HP. Kadabra sets up Reflect, and then Alakazam and Magnemite come in. But then Jasmine double switches back into Steelix, giving Alakazam a free Calm Mind. Steelix goes down to 1 Psychic. Could we have our first Game 3 on our hands? Alakazam is doing 80% with a resisted Psychic to Magnemite. It hits a Thunder Wave, and then Alakazam flexes with a second Calm Mind as Magnemite can't move. It's all falling apart here for Jasmine. Psychic blows up Magnemite, and the last line of defense is its twin. And what a line of defense it is. Critical hit Thunderbolt one-shots Alakazam. Can Jasmine win this? Venomoth switches to Kadabra, and both Pokemon are paralyzed because of Synchronize. Jasmine goes for a hard read and Thunder Waves again, but nothing happens. Kadabra's Psybeam does decent damage, and Jasmine must be confused because she continues to Thunder Wave a paralyzed Pokemon. Kadabra knocks out the Magnemite without taking any more damage. Jasmine looks worried on the sideline. What happened to her? Is Sabrina messing with her mind? Game 3 begins, and there's a hum in the crowd. Kadabra to Mr. Mime, and Steelix misses its first Iron Tail. Oh no. Mr. Mime goes for Barrier here.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Steelix misses another Iron Tail. Barrier again. Mr. Mime is at 3 times defense. Steelix goes for Screech, maybe it can trade defense changes, but no. Mr. Mime's soundproof ability blocks Screech. Mr. Mime sets up a Calm Mind, staring Steelix in the eyes, and Steelix misses again. Another Calm Mind, and Iron Tail is only doing 21% now. Psybeam is a 3-shot. Iron Tail is still only doing a 5th to Mr. Mime, but it gets the defense drop. Mr. Mime adjusts, he goes for another Barrier, and Steelix can't hit anything as it misses Iron Tail again. Another Psybeam and Steelix is low, and to be honest, Steelix is a hazard to the fans at this point as his Iron Tails are going everywhere but Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime finally puts Steelix out of its misery, and cleans up the 2 Magnemites as they can't seem to wrap their heads around the fact that Supersonic doesn't affect Mr. Mime due to his soundproof ability. Wow. Mr. Mime is about to go get scanned into the Hall of Fame after that one. I have never seen a performance so dominant. And that Steelix, man, it's gonna need a lot of recovery after that sort of collapse. You can't just use a revive on its psyche after that.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Suddenly, we are at a 3-3 deadlock, and whispers start to go through the crowd. What happens if there's a tie? Before anyone can ask, Blaine and Price are in the ring. The battle of the old men. The battle of the underwhelming 7th gym leaders. There are plenty of mean names swirling, but the 2 men haven't heard any of it. Maybe because they're hard of hearing. Because they're old. LOL. Anyway, you might think Blaine has the upper hand, but Price actually has 2 dual water types, and both of them have the thick fat ability, so this might not be the runaway you think. Blaine switches immediately to Arcanine, bringing in his most fearsome battler right away. Price does the same, bringing in Piloswine. Then, terrified of being one-shot immediately, he brings in Dugong, which immediately takes a whopping 48% from a critical hit Fire Blast, which also burns. Then Arcanine flinches Dugong with Bite, and before you know it, Dugong is forced out for fear of being KO'd early. Seal tries to stall a bit with Rest and Icy Wind, but eventually Price sacks Dugong just to bring Seal back in again. Clearly he's not thinking straight. Arcanine dispatches Seal with Bite and Takedown, and then there's just the Piloswine. Maybe if Fire Blast misses, there's a chance that nope, Fire Blast hits and one-hit KOs it. If you liked that fast-paced 11-turn singles action, then you might want to look away from this next one. Blaine clearly doesn't want Price to run away with the senile competition they're having. I don't even know if Blaine is that old. I don't know, beats me. Game 2, things start the same, but on the swap to Dugong, Arcanine misses Fire Blast, a far cry from the crit and burn of last game. This triggers some sort of sleeper agent code in Blaine's mind, because then he proceeds to go on an unprecedented 32-turn tear, where he uses every single one of his Roar PPs. And the entire time, Price just switches. Over and over. Like, what is happening? This is not Pokemon battling. Finally, after that incredibly riveting sequence, Arcanine starts going for Fire Blast, and you think we're out of the woods. But no. Then Seal and Ponyta go on their own little journey, where Seal spams Rest on and off for another 25-ish turns. before Rapidash finally knocks it out with Bounce. Then Dugong gets the same idea and tries to start rest spamming, but Arcanine thankfully hits a critical hit Fire Blast on turn 70 to knock it out. Then Piloswine gets annihilated by another Fire Blast, and we are freed from this endless boredom of a battle. Afterwards, Blaine and Price approach each other stoically and start shaking hands. Then at the same time, they both start laughing and clapping each other on the shoulder. No one knows why, and no one found it endearing. That may have been a snooze fest, but you know what's not? Kanto's unprecedented 3-game win streak to go up 4-3 in the series. They have now guaranteed themselves at least a tie, and thank God, because the next matchup is bleak for them, and that's being kind. Giovanni and his ground types do not look thrilled to be there, and Claire struts to the battlefield confidently. Meanwhile, most of the crowd is debating whether or not to call Officer Jenny, as a wanted fugitive is taking part in a Pokemon battling competition. Giovanni leads Dugtrio into Claire's Gyarados, and Giovanni switches to Rhyhorn as Claire sends out that dreaded Kingdra. Hydro Pump blows away Rhyhorn. Giovanni is clutching his hat. Hydro Pump blasts away the second Rhyhorn. Giovanni's knuckles are white. Dugtrio has one out, and it goes for Mud Slap. If Kingdra misses enough Hydro Pumps, Giovanni has a chance. But no, Dugtrio is washed away, and then Nidoking. Nidoqueen actually lives a Hydro Pump, but Claire eventually switches to Gyarados to finish the job. Giovanni wants this. He wants a game off of Claire. Not just a game, but he wants the glory of winning for Kanto. He wants that. The fame. The righteousness. He has lost so much. He craves the validation of his own greatness. But he's also a criminal, so let's not sympathize with him too much. Game 2 starts the same, but Kingdra misses a Hydro Pump, and Rhyhorn slows it down with Scary Face. Kingdra misses again, but Rhyhorn misses another Scary Face. Giovanni needs damage. Kingdra won't miss forever, and it washes away the two Rhyhorn in short order. Dugtrio hits Mud Slap and makes Kingdra miss. Giovanni might have a chance here, but no. Kingdra knocks it out after taking some chip from Slash. Nidoking's Poison Sting is pitifully weak, but it does get the poison. But then Kingdra hits another Hydro Pump, and Giovanni is on his last Pokemon again. Nidoqueen actually knocks out the Kingdra, but it doesn't have any chance of finishing off Claire's final 3 Pokemon, and Gyarados finishes it off with Bite. We never even saw the Dragonair in the back. Giovanni is defeated, but something is different. He shakes Claire's hand with 2 of his, and even thanks her for the battle. He knocked out Kingdra, and seems happy with that. As he retreats to the sideline, he takes his Dugtrio and Nidoqueen out of their Pokeballs, and sits with them, clearly proud. But now what? All of this for a 4-4 tie? Lance steps into the ring, but is at a loss for words. Morty and Sabrina convene with him, communicating in hushed whispers. Lance becomes agitated at one point, gesturing for emphasis, but Morty and Sabrina shake hands on something. The two of them turn to the crowd and call for their attention. They explain that the only true way to break this tie is to allow the ultimate rep from each region to compete against each other. The champions. Excited chatter sweeps through the crowd. Suddenly they part, and someone is standing there. It's Blue. He pushes his hair back, still self-absorbed as ever and clearly loving the dramatics. Sabrina indicates that Blue will be Kanto's representative for the final battle. Lance steps in. He's seen enough. He's flustered, and he tries to call it off. He says that he will not represent Johto, even if he's from Blackthorn City. He sees himself as a champion of both regions. Before he can get too far though, Morty stops him, saying that they have not selected Lance as their champion. Lance is confused, but before he can ask, there's a loud roar from the sky. A giant shadow covers the plateau, and then is gone in an instant. In a flash, a Charizard swoops out of nowhere and lands in front of everyone. Without a word, Red slides off his Charizard's back. Pikachu is on his shoulder. The crowd really buzzes now. Seeing where this is going, Blue chirps up. He complains that Red isn't from Johto, he can't be their champion. Blue seems nervous now for the first time. Morty says that Red basically lives in Johto now, training at Mount Silver for as long as anyone can remember. After some bickering back and forth, Red finally raises a hand. He says he will represent Johto, if they will have him. Both teams of gym leaders huddle amongst themselves. After what feels like forever, they emerge, and they agree. But under the same rules as before. Pikachu will not have its light ball as a held item. Red seems unperturbed. Blue, meanwhile, keeps rubbing his hands on the front of his pants and pulling at his collar. He's worried. The two childhood rivals stand on either end of the battlefield. It's time to fight. Pikachu versus Pidgeot is the lead, but they double out to Snorlax and Arcanine respectively. Blue has a great switch to Rhydon to eat the Giga Impact from Snorlax, and uses Snorlax's recharging turn to hit a hard Earthquake. Red switches to Blastoise, and Blue misses a Rock Tomb that would have been nice to have for the chip. Blue has another great switch to Gyarados to absorb Hydro Cannon, and Blue is showing that he can exploit Red's superpowered moves that require a recharge turn with smart switching. Gyarados makes a big move and goes for Thrash, doing respectable damage but locking it in for at least a couple turns. Venusaur swaps in for Red and takes 30% from another Thrash. Then, Gyarados hits a monster high roll crit Thrash to KO the Venusaur, and that is huge for Blue. But Red isn't out of anything yet, far from it. Gyarados hits itself in confusion, and Snorlax bodies it with a Giga Impact. 5-5 on Pokemon. Rhydon is back in, and goes for a mostly useless Scary Face as Snorlax recharges. Another Scary Face on the switch to Blastoise is slightly more useful, but on the next turn Blastoise hits a Hydro Cannon to take Red up to 5-4 on Pokemon. Blue is choking a little here. His Alakazam comes in and does nearly 50% with Psychic, and is threatening a knockout on the next turn. Red gives it to him, probably not wanting to sack anything else. 4-4 between them. Charizard comes in, and Alakazam shows that Psychic is a two-shot on almost every Pokemon on Red's team. Blast Burn leaves Alakazam in the red, but it finishes off the Charizard on the next turn. Lapras comes in and starts going back and forth with body slams as Alakazam tries to recover back to full. Eventually Lapras hits a crit body slam that brings Alakazam super low, but it paralyzes, and Alakazam's Synchronize ability means Lapras is paralyzed too, which is not great for Red. Finally, Lapras knocks out Alakazam with the Brine, but this isn't a super even 3-3 when a couple of Red's Pokemon are on low health. Venusaur comes in for Blue, but swaps to Pidgeot immediately as Red goes to Snorlax. Blue makes a great play, using Feather Dance so it can eat Snorlax's Giga Impact without even taking half health and damage. Then two Aerial Aces knock out the Snorlax because one of them crits, and Blue is staring down a Pikachu and a low HP Lapras to take the game. Blue's Arcanine is able to finish off the Lapras, and then a single Flamethrower knocks out Pikachu. Blue can't believe it. He beat Red. He can't even remember the last time that happened. One more game, and he will have brought glory to Kanto, and himself. Red is as stoic as ever, and asks for Game 2 to start almost immediately. Game 2 begins the same way, but this time Rhydon hits the Rock Tomb on Blastoise, doing decent damage and lowering its speed. Blue makes an interesting decision and decides to sack Rhydon immediately, and brings in Gyarados at full HP. Not wanting to be locked into Thrash this early, Blue starts going for Bite, doing chip to both Blastoise and the Venusaur that comes in. Then Thrash starts and does good damage as Red misses a Sleep Powder. Giving up on Sleep Powder, Venusaur uses Giga Drain for decent damage after tanking another Thrash. Red predicts the swap and brings in Lapras as Blue brings in Pidgeot. Blue doubles out to Alakazam, which takes huge damage from Lapras's Blizzard. Then it's time to spam both recover and attack moves from Lapras, but this time the body slam paras happen earlier. Alakazam eventually gets lucky again and heals to almost full as Lapras is paralyzed, and forces Red into Charizard as Alakazam once again recovers to almost full. Blue decides to save Alakazam after one Air Slash and goes into Gyarados, but Red is doing the better job this time of chipping down his opponent's Pokemon methodically. Blue starts thrashing with Gyarados as red brings in Lapras, and eventually swaps to Pidgeot as red brings in Blastoise. Red then tries to sack Lapras, but Blue uses Whirlwind and drags out Pikachu. Then Blue tries to sack Gyarados, but red brings in Lapras, almost like he's trying to sack. Fascinating decision making, really. It's clearly a very positional game.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
Finally, Blue caves and start using Thrash, and it pays off as he gets Blastoise for free. Somehow we're 26 turns in and both trainers have lost only one Pokemon. Blue then makes a very interesting play and basically sacks Gyarados, but in return makes Snorlax induce a turn of recharging. Arcanine comes in and uses Bite to chip down Snorlax and then knock out Lapras. Once again, we're even on Pokemon as red brings in Charizard. He then immediately swaps to Snorlax, but Blue uses Roar and drags out Venusaur. 2 more switches make it Pidgeot against Charizard, but then Blue makes an inspired play and eats a Blast Burn with Arcanine. This lets Blue then get off 56% for free with Extreme Speed, as Charizard recharges and then misses an Air Slash. Another Blast Burn leaves Arcanine in the red, but it allows it to beat the Charizard with a final Extreme Speed. But Arcanine isn't done yet. It does a little more chip to Snorlax before fainting to a Giga Impact. Blue tries to sew things up with Alakazam, but it is fully paralyzed in a key moment. Snorlax is able to take the KO on Alakazam, and suddenly things have swung the other way, and Red is up 3-2 on Pokemon. Pidgeot quickly evens the score though, knocking out Snorlax with 2 aerial aces. After Pikachu comes in, both trainers swap to their Venusaurs. And here, let me say, Blue makes an absolutely inspired series of moves. Just watch this. Red does 32% with Sludge Bomb, and Blue goes for Growth. He's setting up in the final 2v2 of this game. If he loses his Venusaur, he's done. Next turn, Red hits another Sludge Bomb, but Blue reveals Synthesis. He's actually relatively safe to set up. Another Growth, another Synthesis, and Blue is running away with this. But there's a crit Sludge Bomb. Blue has to switch to save Venusaur, and everything has flipped again. Red's Sludge Bomb does huge damage and poisons, but one aerial ace from Pidgeot finishes it off. So it's all down to the mascot, Red's Pikachu. And 2 quick attacks actually finish off Pidgeot. But it's too little too late for Red and Pikachu, as Venusaur is safe to use Synthesis, and Red is never getting through this wall. A few turns later, a Solar Beam fries the little mouse, and against all odds, Blue wins the set and the tournament. There's silence for a moment, and then pandemonium erupts. Red doesn't seem bothered at all, and when he congratulates Blue, there's a genuine smile on his face. Blue thinks that feels better than the rest of the celebration. Lance declares Kanto the winner of the crew battle and gives them bragging rights for the rest of time, or until the next tournament. Oh, that was a lot of talking, especially with a sore throat. I really hope you enjoyed that though. I had a ton of fun writing out some of the little narrative bits, and figuring out how to make the bots run against each other was also a fun little challenge. Now, I know that nothing here is definitive or scientific, but I really think it makes for a fun video. And that's all I'm really trying to do at the end of the day. I would really appreciate a like on the video and also a comment on what you enjoyed, or honestly what you didn't enjoy. Also, if you want to see more content, subscribing helps a lot and lets me feel justified continuing to spend all of my free time doing this. Also, if you have any future suggestions for video ideas based off of this or otherwise, please let me know. I mean it when I say that I really do read all of the comments. Anyway, that's enough out of me. Thanks again for watching. Have a great rest of your day.